Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and changemakers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create ecosystems and environments where people thrive. Look, I have one of my friends here today. She is absolutely insane, amazing in all the things, and we were having such a great conversation behind the scenes. So let's just continue it. Let's continue to build, and let's continue to identify ways that we can plant seeds so that our communities can be better, more intentional, and create impact. Claire, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here, Kyle. Thank you for having me.
Of course. You know, it's so weird because we have these amazing conversations like, oh my God, we got to record. And then it's like we have to start the whole conversation over. But, you know, we're back, and I'm super, super happy that we're having this conversation because you are literally doing amazing things. And for someone who doesn't know you, they've never been introduced to you, who are you? And how are you advancing impact in your community?
Well, you know, to go a bit further back, I am my trade is in marketing communications. So that is my background. Marketing communications was always my jam. And I really struggled to find purpose in work, as a lot of people do. That was a tough thing for me. And I'm an empath, and I feel like that was really important. So somewhere along the lines, I'm like, okay, what am I doing here in my current role? Maybe I can advocate for the industry. I was doing marketing communications for surveying geomatics. And then in May 2023, my daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She was 5.5 years old. So my climbing of the corporate ladder was quickly put on hold for good reason. And wouldn't you know, that purpose landed in my lap. So I now have the Strong Like Sloan Foundation, which is a foundation here. I am in Canada, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and we raise money, advocacy, awareness for pediatric cancer research and initiatives. And then on the side, I do speaking because I feel like if I can use my skills and abilities to inspire even one purpose, then I've done my job. And I hate to say everything happens for a reason, because I don't know why kids get cancer. I don't think there's a reason, but for me, it was finding some purpose in my life, and that's my reason.
Let's just stay there for a second. And I really appreciate so much how vulnerable, how transparent and authentic you are, and how much of a light you are as well. But there's somebody out there that really has experienced something, that has lived a story, but they don't feel led or courageous enough or bold enough to share it. And not just share it, but build an organization like you have that is leading this work. What would you say to that person?
I would say to take the pressure off yourself for that exact reason, though, because I feel like people have seen what I've done, and it's incredible. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but it is crazy what we have done in less than 3 years, all while my daughter was going through cancer treatment. But that's not everybody's story, and everybody has a different purpose and a way that they can create impact or find ways to cope. So for me, if I'm being completely honest, when I started the Strong Like Sloan Foundation, it was just a distraction for me. I am, again, marketing communications professional by trade. And for me, I just needed something to pull me away from the obsession at 1 a.m. that, you know, going down the Google path of statistics and clinical trials and all of that. So for me, I found purpose in that distraction, and it's just evolved from there. But we all go through hard things, and we deal with them in very different ways. And I would never want someone to see what I've done and put pressure pressure to be like, well, then I should do something like that, because we all handle things so differently.
That's so good. That's so good. And, I love to always ask this question about vision. 3 to 5 years from now, if everything worked exactly how you would want it, where would the Strong Like Sloan Foundation be?
Oh, in a perfect world,
In a perfect
it wouldn't.
world.
In a perfect world, the Strong Like Sloan Foundation wouldn't have to exist, because we would find a cure and we would end pediatric cancer. So that is a big, bold vision, but it is incredible what we're seeing in the world and the advancements we're making. I don't think we're far off. I don't think we are. So that would be my vision, is that ideally the Strong Like Sloan Foundation doesn't exist. And I think that would be the goal of a lot of nonprofits. If I think about nonprofits, like nonprofits are here to serve a reason and advocate and create awareness and funding for things, but they wouldn't exist if that problem didn't exist. So
That's so powerful. That's so powerful, Claire. And I want to take a second to just highlight that, because I think that a lot of times I've been hearing this conversation a lot, and I agree with it on one hand, that we have to start building businesses to scale, to sustain, and all of these different things. And nonprofit is just a tax status, and we have to look at it like a business. But I love what you said. We have to look at this like something that if we actually solve the problem, that we wouldn't actually have this business anymore. But I think a lot of times we're not solving the actual root of the problem. We're just creating solutions or symptoms, and we're wanting funders to fund symptoms, and we're not really driving the work forward to actually solve the problem. Because if we did, then what would we do?
Yeah.
So what do we do? Like, what would be your advice to those nonprofit social impact leaders that are out there really just doing everything around the problem so that they do in fact still exist?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. I don't know if I'm going to answer the question in the right way, but I struggle with this in the Strong Like Sloan Foundation all the time, and really trying to come to the root of the problem and the solution, because for us, the big piece is around research. And to throw out some statistics, only 7% of funding for cancer research in Canada goes to pediatrics, yet it's the number one cause of death by disease in kids. And it's even worse in the States. It's about 4.5% of funding for cancer research goes to pediatrics in the US. And it's hard. Like, that's a hard problem to solve. It's hard to try to find solutions and cures for cancer. And research is a really hard thing to fund for. If there are other nonprofits that are listening to this, I think it's one of the hardest things, because it's a long game. Research is always a long game, and it's always hard to get people to fund things that they don't see the tangible, what's happening today. Where am I putting the money today? And I would like to see physically where that money's going. Research is a long game, and it's hard to fund. So it's a solution that's ongoing. It's not a quick Band-Aid fix, and it's still going to take time, but I know how much we're doing in this world and the advancements we're making, and AI and all of those things. There's no way we are not far off from a cure for cancer.
I really appreciate you saying that. And, one thing that I love about your background is that it's versatile. You did not come from nonprofit work. You came from corporate and marketing and branding. And you've built this nonprofit in literally under 3 years. In under 3 years, you've raised almost $400,000.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk to the nonprofit leader, the grassroots organization that is struggling getting $3,000?
Yeah.
Like, what did you do? Like, how could you walk us through how you raised the money, how you built the organization, and then philosophies that you've learned along the process?
Yeah. So I guess where I have a unique angle is that I am a parent with lived experience. So that goes a long way. Certainly not saying that I'm exploiting my daughter, but we know that sorry, Sloan. She is the face of this. She is the face. And sorry, I should say for your listeners, because they may not hear this or see this elsewhere, my daughter is now in remission. So all good. She went through 18 crazy months of treatment. She was out of treatment for 6 months, and then she relapsed last April. After the chance of relapse with this type of cancer, chances of survival drop below 10%. So very scary time. But she went through another 7 months of treatment, and then she got clear scans at the end of October. So we've got our fingers crossed, prayers, all the things. So wanted to give that background, but that is my unique selling point or angle, is that I'm a parent with lived experience. I have a daughter, and I think though where the root of all of that comes from and the success really comes from two main things. And I would say that's community and storytelling. I'm lucky that I have a marketing communications background, and storytelling is my jam. That is why I got into speaking. That's why I find storytelling to be very therapeutic. So that's also why I speak. But storytelling and really connecting with people at a human level and putting them in your shoes. That's always the message that I try to drive. And imagine you were a parent and you woke up and this is the nightmare you're living, and really connect with people on that emotional level. So storytelling is big, and community. Really, to be a successful nonprofit charitable organization, especially from the grassroots level, you have to lean on your community. You can't be afraid to build a community. You can't be afraid to ask for help. You can't be afraid to ask for things. The worst that someone can say is no. My dear old dad has a saying, and I always think about it. He always said, you can't win if you don't send in. So that's the philosophy that I live by. So community and storytelling have been huge for us and for our success in under 3 years.
Let's break down stories for a second, because I think that we hear the word storytelling and we understand how important it is, especially within this industry. But how do we actually tell stories? Put your marketing and your branding hat back on, because what if I'm not the mom? What if I'm not the dad or the person that is directly affected?
Yeah.
How do I still frame and capture the hearts and minds of people and share a story that can lead people to take some form of an action?
I think that comes back to the hand in hand with community and finding those people who can tell the stories for you. We, even as the Strong Like Sloan Foundation, and I know there's a lot of other grassroots foundations here locally in Calgary that raise money for pediatric cancer, we all lean on each other and we share each other's stories. And if I think about other groups that are raising money for pediatric cancer or anything, they are going out to the community, they are finding the stories. So if you don't have a story to tell, I guarantee you can find someone who does, and someone who would be willing to do that because they know that it's going to better whatever it is that you're trying to raise money and awareness for. So if you don't have a story yourself, finding somebody who does. And it's very rare that someone will say no.
I love that, because that's the conversation that I have a lot of times is, I don't have this deep, dark origin story that I need to be able to share. And I think that's such a great point of just find someone else, be able to tell that story for you. And your story of how you're turning adversity into action and leading with heart is something that I absolutely love. What does that look like? Like, what does it mean to turn adversity into action and to lead with heart?
Really good question. For me, I believe I've always tried to see, sorry, I shouldn't say always. I dealt with a lot of anxiety as a kid and into my early adult years, but through the last 3 years in this journey, I've really tried to see challenges as opportunities for growth. And that is the mindset that I've had. And that's where I lead. I lead from that view and that angle, that just because we're going through hard times and we're going through some pretty bad crap, we can find positive things from this. I found a lot of blessings throughout life's battles, and that's where I try to lead. And I try to lead from a place of, what if it all works out? We all go to this negative mindset. We all go there when things are hard. We go to the worst case scenario, we spiral, and we're looking to the future and all the what ifs. But I have a sign that's right on my front door. As soon as we walk into our front entrance, it says, what if it all works out? And I think that's a great reminder. And that's what I try to lead with everything I do, is that mindset, because it could all work out, and we should really have that mindset and think that way.
What if it all works out?
Yeah. Write it down. Write it down.
Let me ask you that, Claire. What if it all works out?
Yeah. What if it all works out? What would that look like for me?
Yeah, what would that look like?
Sloan lives a long, beautiful, healthy life. I'm going to get emotional. And I just get to see what that looks like for her and growing up, and what it looks like for us to not struggle and fight for funding for pediatric cancer for these kids, and for the kids who do get cancer, assuming there's no cure in the next 3 to 5 years, the kids that do can go on and live long, beautiful, healthy lives because we've found treatments that aren't ruining their bodies. And we just live an abundant life as a family, whatever that means for us. That's what if it all works out. And that's, I try not to get hung up on statistics. It's hard not to when you have a child who's battling cancer or any medical thing. We all go to Dr. Google. It's the worst thing. But again, going back to my point around, Sloan with after relapse, the chance of survival drops below 10%. But then I remember there's that 10% for a reason. And she has her own story and she could be in that 10%. So that's what if it all works out for me.
Let me ask you this, Claire. What kept you going? Like, I recognize building the organization was something that was a beautiful distraction that ended up working out. But for that mom or that dad or that guardian that is experiencing something like this right now, what kept you going, and what would be your message to keep them encouraged and keep them working towards this belief that you've developed?
What kept me going was that I knew that if I gave up, or if I was always sad, like, to me, that's not keeping going. To me, that's stopping. That's not moving forward. To me, like, sitting in the negative and always worrying about what's not in my control, that would be a much harder life. Like, I saw what that looked like. I came across some families early on in our early cancer days. Maybe I still had a bit of a rainbows and unicorns mindset at that point. There were a lot of seasoned families that were in it, and I saw the negative. I saw the sadness. Like, they never came out of that. And I know it's really hard for anyone to think like, well, how could you not be negative if your child's going through cancer treatment or anything medical? But I saw what that looked like. And I knew that I couldn't live like that. I do believe that, it's hard to be positive when things are shitty, pardon my language. It's hard to be optimistic and have that what if it all works out mindset. And it's hard to be grateful when things are going wrong. It's hard, but what's harder to me is living a life of sadness and why me, and always doing about things that are not in my control. So that's what kept me going. I just knew that I wouldn't survive, let alone.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program.
Or thrive, let alone survive, if I didn't have that mindset. So that's what kept me going. I knew I couldn't go the other way.
I love that. And it's worked out. And you've built something that is built to last, is what I like to call it. What's one unexpected lesson, though, that you've learned in this season, in this process, whether it's through building the organization or through the unbecoming and then becoming process you had to go through as well?
For me, the biggest lesson I've learned is more of a personal lesson. And that's that you don't know how capable you are until you're asked to be capable. And I know there's a very similar saying out there about strong and how strong you are. But for me, it's about being capable. And before my daughter was diagnosed, a few years before she was diagnosed, one of my good friends had her husband going through cancer treatment. He sadly passed away. But I remember seeing her and her strength, and I would be the one that was in tears when I was talking to her. And she was just so strong, so stoic. And that made me think of her. I'm like, you don't know how capable you are. Because I always thought to myself, I could never do that. I remember thinking that I could never go through this. I could never be the wife who has a husband going through cancer or a child. if you had told me that, I would have been like, I will crumble and I'll not get through. I will crawl up in my bed and you will not see me. But you don't know how capable you are until you're asked to be capable. And like I said, dealt with a lot of anxiety as a kid. So I've surprised myself with how well I've handled it. But one thing that I wanted to highlight is that often when you talk to people who are going through hard things, when asked how they're handling it, they say, I had no choice. And I hate that, because I do believe we have a choice, right? We're handed the cards that we're handed, and we're dealt the cards that we're dealt. It is what it is. But you do get to choose how you want to show up. Sure, you have to sleep and you have to eat. And if you have kids, you should probably feed them too. But you probably should take care of your kids. But you do get to choose how you want to show up. And I do think that we need to give ourselves a lot more credit when we do. So I don't like the saying, I had no choice, because we do have a choice. We do get to choose many things that we do. We get to choose our mindset. We get to choose our community and the people we surround ourselves with. And we get to choose our actions.
I want to lay there. I want to just talk about community, because it's been coming up a lot on conversations, but I think that every moment that's taken me back, that I wanted to think in my mind that I had no choice but to keep moving forward, until you just broke that down for me. I leaned on community, and I believe that community has been paramount in me really being able to recreate and redefine and reestablish myself, whether it be personally in certain seasons, but then also professionally in certain seasons. How important is community, whether it's building an organization, building yourself, and just recreating your own season?
Well, community was key for us. Yes, building the organization. I should mention that I don't ask for nearly as much as help as I need to when it comes to Strong Like Sloan. It's something about, I'm great at delegating at work, because I'm like, this is your job. You get paid to do this. But getting people to volunteer, it's not hard. Like, don't get me wrong. People want to help, and they're always like, how can I help? When can I volunteer? And I'm like, no, it's okay. I got this. And meanwhile, I'm like doing all these things. So I will be the first to admit, when it comes to Strong Like Sloan, I feel like I need to say it here and now. I will ask for more help with Strong Like Sloan Foundation initiatives, because I don't do it enough. But in my personal life, I definitely do. And that was something that we wouldn't have survived without community and help while Sloan was going through treatment. There were times when she was in for high dose chemo and we were in the hospital. She stayed in the same tiny little hospital room for 6 weeks, one time for high dose chemo and stem cell transplant. She couldn't leave the room. We had to be very careful with who was in and out, because she was quite immune compromised. But my husband and I would not have survived. He kept working. He had a very flexible employer, which was great. I took time off work, but we had, whether it was my mom, my mother-in-law, my sister, my best friend, come to help and spell us off when we needed that. And I needed that from a mental health standpoint. I needed to be able to leave and get out of that room. So community was big, and asking for help was huge. And what was really beautiful, again, finding the blessings out of life's battles with all of this, is a new community that surrounded us. And it was like one big warm hug from all of these people and strangers that I'd never met before. And tying it back to Strong Like Sloan initiatives, we had so many people, individuals who I've never met, no relation to whatsoever, volunteer things for raffles or raising money through their businesses. So it really, I'm going to get so emotional this whole podcast. It restored my faith in humanity. Not to say that I was a cynical person and didn't believe that there was good out there, but it really elevated my feeling for humanity. And there are incredible people, and you just have to ask. And it's very rare when you're going through a difficult time or you're dealing with a nonprofit. It is very rare that people will say no if you tell the right story and surround yourself with the right community.
Let me ask you this, Claire. I'm gonna give you a softer one. If you could leave, one guiding principle for emerging leaders, people that haven't had the different experiences in corporate, people that haven't been in the nonprofit industry for decades, but those emerging leaders that want to make a change, that want to make a difference in their communities, but they're navigating adversity, what would that guiding principle be for them?
My guiding principle would be to let go of what you can't control and control what you can. There are so many variables out there that we can't control. And I think as emerging leaders, existing leaders, really anybody in life and in work, we can get so obsessed over things, especially in nonprofit where you're trying to make a difference and you are out there and you're hitting the pavement and trying to share your story. But there's a difference between being informed and obsessed, and there's a lot of obsession out there for sure. So my biggest takeaway or a piece of advice would be to let go of what you can't control and control what you can, because once you let go of what you can't control, you actually feel so much peace. I can't tell you how many times I felt incredible amounts of peace throughout all of this where I really probably shouldn't have. And I felt very peaceful. And there's a lot coming from an anxious person. So I felt very at peace by letting go of what I couldn't control, which for me was Sloan's cancer and her treatments. But there's a lot of variables that I couldn't control in the pediatric cancer space, research space, funding space. But then once I focused on the things I could control, which were my thoughts, my community, and my actions, I was able to give that energy to those things. And that's how you make a difference. That's how we see progress. That's how you move forward.
That's good. It's beautiful when you hear this, because I recognize that there's often a weight that we carry also in the social impact industry. But then when you layer it with like, this is actually impacting me personally, that's another level of weight. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that balance though? Like, how did you go about balancing these real challenges that your family was experiencing versus like, hey, I actually still have a real job. And then, hey, I actually still have to build this organization for people that are supporting it.
Yeah. I'm probably the worst person to talk about balance. Kyle, that is why I would be at the Alberta Children's Hospital. Sloan would go to sleep at 7:30 or even earlier because she was hopped up on so many drugs. And I really should have gone to sleep. Like that would have been the smart thing, is like, go to sleep, get a good night's sleep. Nope. I was the person who was up until 1, 2 in the morning, not watching some show, binge watching Love is Blind. I was sitting on my computer and like really working on all of the things. So I think now going forward, now that we are in a place of normal for us as a family, whatever that looks like, now is my opportunity to find balance. So I don't have a magic wand or a piece of advice for anyone, because for me, the last 3 years have been very fight or flight. And for me, I don't think there was balance, and I would be lying if I said that there was. It was just about getting it done, doing the things. The one thing I think I will say that I really worked on throughout the last 3 years, which probably helped me find a little bit of balance, is I felt very empowered to say no and set boundaries. And that was the biggest takeaway for me. And that was probably the only way that I found any sort of balance, was being okay saying no. And I think I said to myself, it was this time, it was January 2025 when Sloan was out of treatment the first time before she relapsed in April. And I remember saying to myself, my plan for 2025 was that if it wasn't a hell yes, it was a hell no. So that is what I'm going to continue to think and hold on to going forward, because that's the only way I will survive and find any sort of sanity and balance with all of the things we have going on.
I love that. I've heard that before, but implementing it and actually staying firm on it in your lives creates so much peace and freedom. And then it helps you recognize, unfortunately, how much you used to just say yes to.
Yeah.
And how stretched and tethered to other things that you were.
Yes, everything, all the things. And you know what? I shouldn't say it shouldn't be a no to things. It's just maybe an adjustment, right? And it's doing things when it works for you, not selfishly. That sounds very selfish, but because there are certainly things that are, we don't want to do. So I can't say, you can't say no to everything, but just, I think being a little bit more aware and self-aware of what your needs are is incredibly important. And anyone who works in nonprofit, like you said, you put so much, even if you don't have an emotional personal story like I do. I've met so many wonderful people who are leading nonprofits, and they are so dedicated and pour their heart and soul into that. And you really need to prioritize yourself. That would be another takeaway that I would love for people to remember, is that being prioritizing yourself isn't selfish, it's strategic. So remembering that, and something that I adopted very early on when my girls were born, and it feels like it's an unpopular opinion because when moms have babies, it's like, well, no, that's your priority. And, you have to take care of them, which you clearly do. But I adopted that mindset very early that I was going to prioritize myself. So I was number one. I actually put my husband and my relationship with my husband second, because then third, if those two things are in line, everything else will just come naturally with the kids. Obviously, I loved on them and I supported them and I showered them with love. Like, that's not what I mean, but I definitely prioritized myself and my relationship with my husband. And that served us very well going through treatment. And there is a very high divorce rate for families who are going through difficult medical things with their kids. And I'm very happy to say that we came out on top. And I think that we're stronger because of it. But that's because we had a solid foundation first. So, but back to how this connects to leaders. Again, nonprofit leaders are putting their heart and soul into things. So it's very important that they also prioritize themselves.
There's somebody listening that is as inspired and motivated to go make some change like I am after hearing all of this today, Claire. What would be your message to them? If you had a mic and you had 60 seconds to transform those people that were called to listen to you or that were in the audience that you got to just share something with, what would be your message?
My message would be that we can do hard things. I look at my history and my life with anxiety, and I never thought I would be in the position that I'm in today. And I just wanted to remind everybody and inspire people that they can do hard things. And when they are facing challenges, if they just simply try to change their mindset, be grateful, put things into perspective, find people who are going to cheer you on, find those cheerleaders who will lift you up, you can do incredible things. And you are capable of more than you think you are. So that would be my message to anyone who's facing a challenge. We're all going to face challenges, whether it's work, life, health, relationships. It's what connects us as humans. But if we take control of what we can control, we can do really hard things.
Claire, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I've definitely had to hold back tears because there's so much beauty in your story, not just for what you've done, but for who you've become. And who you've become in the process is more capable, is a light that is continuing to shine on so many people and giving people hope, giving people a sense of courage and boldness. So I appreciate you so much. If people want to follow your work, if people want to support your organization, where can they find you and how can they support?
So we are on Instagram. We don't have a website yet for Strong Like Sloan, but they can find us on Instagram. So Strong Like Sloan, and Sloan is with an E. Or they can also follow along my personal account, which is The Real Claire M. And I share a lot more motivational stuff on that side. So depending what they need, those are the two places to go.
One of the questions that we always ask our listeners listening in is, what type of culture are you spreading? Claire is spreading a culture of hope. Claire is spreading a culture that intentional action, will be able to defy all of the adversity that you will be able to meet in your life. And that communication, as well as storytelling, are the seeds that you need to plant to not just grow your organization, but to empower and advance the impact within your community. The energy you bring is the culture you create. It's another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast, and we will see you all next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.